We do have David Marion and Dana Golden here to talk about addiction and the book Addiction Rescue. Definitely check it out. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, your local bookstores, wherever you can get, to, I guess, in this time. So first of all, David and Dana, thanks so much for coming on. I'm going to call you guys the Double D today. Maybe that'll help me with all my brain fog and other issues, but thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having us, Rob. It's great to be here.
So let's talk about what's going on right now. I mean, just to tap on before we get into the book, there still is, I should say, an addiction crisis in this country with opioids right now. And it seems like it's getting worse because of the lockdowns, the COVID-19 crisis. Now we have monkeypox, gas issues, food issues, insecurity with homes and houselessness now. What are you hearing in this community that you work in consistently daily about these opioid issues getting worse?
Well, I think also we're seeing a rise of fentanyl that we haven't seen before. Fentanyl being put into everything. A lot of these pill mills are still in existence, and a lot of the stuff that's coming into this country is still floating in through fentanyl. And I think fentanyl has really become the epidemic as well. So it is on the rise exponentially. The numbers are up. 108,000 last year have overdosed and died, which is up, significantly from the year before. And anytime you have any type of lockdown, pandemic, you're seeing the collateral damage right now and the carnage and fallout, not only on the addiction side, but on the mental health.
So I want to talk about this because a lot of people heard President Trump when he was in office talk about fentanyl and how it is coming over from China over the border. Can you go a little deeper into how fentanyl is coming into the country? And also, David, it's being laced is from what I hear, and that's why people are dying very quick.
Yeah, well, fentanyl, we know, and carfentanil is so potent. Right? One little grain is enough to really get all three of us, or to kill all three of us.
Wow.
Literally the size of a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Is what he's talking about.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah.
It's cheaper to make. It's made in laboratories. It's synthetic. It's not, you don't need these big fields, the poppy fields to make the heroin. So they're making it in these labs in China, sending them through Mexico, coming in through our borders. And listen, I heard the drug czar of this country saying recently, they don't know how it's coming in. They have no clue how it's coming in, the amount of fentanyl that's filtering into this country. And obviously the smugglers are really good at what they do. They're putting it into everything.
So, and just to throw this on top of that, Rob, is that fentanyl, because it's so cheap to make and you need so little of it to get high, that's the motivation for these drug dealers to use fentanyl, because it is so cheap to make and it's very addictive. And if you have a history of it, you can get away with a few grains. But if you're thinking you're buying an opioid pill, or you're buying pure cocaine, and even marijuana now is laced with fentanyl, and you get one grain in there, and you've never done fentanyl before, it can be lethal. So we're dealing with an epidemic where people used to experiment with drugs, and now you can't anymore. I mean, if you buy street drugs, there is a really good chance you will die. And it's Russian roulette every time you buy a drug on the street. It's really scary out there.
So let me ask you guys this, because this goes into my point. We hear some people speak about legalizing, obviously, marijuana. Obviously, in many states in this country, it has already been legalized as far as the state level goes. Do you feel like with the legalization of marijuana being sold in stores, that will calm down as far as the usage of fentanyl, or no?
I think it definitely will when it comes to marijuana, for sure. I mean, if you can buy it legally in a safe place, 100% better off than states that don't have it legalized and they have to buy it on the street. Right. And in my opinion, I don't know why and never have known why alcohol is legal and marijuana is not legal, because nobody dies from marijuana, and people are dying 95,000 deaths from alcohol use last year alone. So, you know, I don't get it. It's
Well,
government.
also they can tax it, Dana, too.
And make money for their states.
But I also think once you're talking about the legalization of marijuana, now you're opening up a whole new realm of people that might not have tried it because it was illegal. And you're opening up something that you don't even want to get into, that people that want to try it as a recreational user become addicted. And I think, you know, I'm for decriminalization. Legalization part, I'm having a hard time with.
David, would that lead toward a legalization of drugs in general if every state in the country did go legalization for marijuana?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You know, listen, what Oregon did, legalization of, you know, recreational drugs, cocaine, acid, weed. You know, listen, you open yourself up for just trouble, you know, innocent people that might not have tried it because it was illegal. Now, all of a sudden it's giving them that open door to try something because, you know, alcohol is legal, right? You can go to a bar and have it. Now I can snort a little cocaine, not knowing what's in the cocaine. Like Dana said, it is Russian roulette they're playing every time. And I think the deaths are going to skyrocket. We're going to see so many more overdoses. You know, I had a family ask me one time, do I think marijuana is a gateway drug? Right? And my response was, no way. No way. A gateway, you know, for me, what's a gateway drug? Or trauma, right? Trauma is something that's, you're trying to self-medicate the pain. And obviously marijuana might not be working. So you want to move to something else to numb the pain.
Let's talk about what you guys do before we get into the book. So can you talk about what you guys do specifically in helping people with addictions? Whoever wants
Okay, I'll go.
Okay. I just was leaving it open, so.
She's on a roll.
So we are addiction and recovery specialists. We both do interventions, although David handles more of the interventions that come in. So traveling all over the country to help families and loved ones find a place for their loved one that's having alcohol or drug issues, get into a treatment facility. And then their path to recovery after the 30 days, because that's really just the start when they go to a treatment facility. And then we're coaches. So we're both recovery coaches. David typically works with those clients after treatment. And then I work with families. I'm a family addiction coach because everybody kind of needs to learn their part in an addictive relationship and family of orientation. And so I work with those families to help change their behaviors while David works on the ongoing continuum care with the clients. So, and we have our book, Addiction Rescue, which is a great blueprint to helping people and even just to identify if there are addictive behaviors. What are those signs? What does that look like? So that's what we do. We're out there fighting the fight.
When you speak about Addiction Rescue, which is the book, can you talk about what made you want to write this book and how it is a blueprint for people to really work on themselves and get past their addictions?
Well, we haven't even talked about it yet, but David and I are former spouses. David was the addict in our relationship. I was the good codependent enabler. And so once we divorced, David had some trouble. We haven't even gone into any of this, have we? David ended up in prison because of his addictions to opioids and heroin and gambling. And when he was in prison, I told him he got clean and sober about 1.5 years before he went to prison, knowing he didn't want to, go through getting clean in a prison facility. So, he was on his path to redemption going through that period of his life. And I said, we could really help other people. And David, before his relapse in our marriage, he was very, very involved in the AA community, and he spoke around the country. And motivational speaker on recovery and very networked in. And then he relapsed because of knee surgery, being prescribed opiates. And that was the beginning to his downfall when he relapsed. So I said, write down your stories, write down what you've gone through, what it felt like, where you were at, where you are today, you know, and I know we can help other people because I, being on the family side of it, have lived on that other side of addiction my whole life, but starting with my dad and relationships. And then I went through it, unfortunately, when David relapsed. So I said, we can help other people through this turmoil and this process. So that was the motivation for the book. So once he got out of prison, I took all his notes, I turned it into Addiction Rescue, the No BS Guide to Recovery. And David got certified right away in interventions and recovery coaching. And we've just been working together ever since to help as many people and families as we can.
Oh, so can you talk about that, of how a lot of these doctors are pushing pills, whether it's a surgery in general, and how that that really gets you hooked on these medications?
Well, I was a first generation opioid guy, right?
Yeah.
Years ago when they didn't know the perniciousness of the pills and what could happen, that you can become addicted, that you can overdose and die from them. And I remember the first prescription I ever got, a doctor wrote me for my knee surgery, 180 pills.
Wow.
180. I took
Jeez.
2 of them and I felt that euphoric recall of chomping on Quaaludes in the 70s back at Studio 54, Love and Life. I called the doctor immediately. I said, Doc, you're never going to believe it. He said, what? I said, I'm going to the bathroom. I open up the pill bottle. They all spilled down. He says, David, I'll write you another prescription. Now I got 360 and I'm ready to roll. And that was it, you know. That was
Wow. How long ago was this? Sorry to interrupt.
This was 2003.
Oh, wow. So not that long ago. Wow.
No,
Okay.
but this, you know, right at the turn of the millennium, we really saw the increase. And, you know, we know what happened with the FDA lying on a lot of their labeling on what they were doing with the
Right.
Purdue Pharmaceutical and other companies that were selling opioids at the time, having these salespeople really just mass market them like this is going to be, you know, the quick fix. And, you know, I love the feeling. I love how it made me feel. You either love it or you don't. You know, some people do and others don't. And I didn't know that I would get addicted that fast.
Yeah.
I think once you do, that's the spiral effect. Now, listen, I always say if we had 100 people in this room,
Yeah.
and we locked everybody in this room for 7 days, and everybody smoked weed together for 7 days straight, maybe 3-4 people will become addicted. But if we locked the same 100 people in and did opioids for 7 days straight, everybody in that room would become addicted. That's the power of this. Your body is physically craving it after 3 or 4 days. You know, I also helped create legislation in the state of Minnesota. That's another conversation that created, obviously, legislation against the opioid epidemic, increasing their registration fees to sell pills in the state of Minnesota, but also the daily limits on the prescription. Instead of writing a 30-day prescription, now they were writing 3 to 5 day.
Why is the opioid epidemic going on strongly in certain parts of the country? Like we look at West Virginia. I was told that, you know, in a state like West Virginia, there's a lot of coal miners. Obviously, well, the steel industry is kind of dead there, but there was at a time a good steel industry. Is that why? Because those guys would get injured so often and they would push those pills on a lot of those guys. Is there truth to that? Is that factual?
Yes, I mean, if you saw Dope Sick and you saw some of those really good documentaries on it, it really goes into detail on these small towns that had a lot of doctors. And as a result, people were coming from out of state to find these doctors in there. But at the same time, it was going on throughout the country. You know, it was happening in New York. It was happening in Florida, the pill mills. You know, it's just a wider spread region. So it wasn't as condensed as a small state like West Virginia that per capita had the most opioids.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. But 360 pills. Wow. And they just prescribe it like it's nothing. That's
because they didn't know. It was so easy to work these doctors back then. You know,
But they were getting paid off to keep prescribing, correct though?
I don't know if they were getting, well, you know, if a bass boat showed up in their driveway because they sold,
Right.
you know, 1 million pills this month, they wouldn't turn it down,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
They were incentivized.
Yes.
Mhm. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't, you know, I've always heard stories about this, but I never heard about how bad, you know, it was as far as, you know, prescriptions just saying, oh, you dropped it in the toilet. I'll just give you another 180 pills. Now, 180 pills is quite a lot for one prescription. I
Right.
would,
Absolutely. You know, I was at the dentist this morning, and the dentist actually is a friend of mine. It was a friend of my mom's, and I was talking to him. I said, "Do you prescribe narcotics?" And he
Mhm.
said, "Very rarely." And I said, does the DEA really breathe down your neck when you do?" He goes, "Yeah, it scares the shit out of us, you
Okay.
know." And he said, now what happens is if somebody does get a narcotic, they have to, before they prescribe it, have to go through their whole medical chart to make sure they're not doctor shopping.
Wow. So it's a lot tougher now than it, you know, for sure than it was before.
Yes, and it's not fair for people that have chronic pain that do
Mhm.
actually need it. It's becoming harder for them. So that was a lot of the opposition through legislation, the people with chronic pain that really have, you know, dying and, you know, really need the pills for, you know, for stage 4 cancer or, you know, things like that, that really aren't abusing them, but they need them for sustain their pain.
Mhm. So we're talking about, like, you know, they tell a lot of these people that, you know, have chronic pain, you know, to, you know, smoke weed or, you know, get some municipal marijuana as far as that goes. Are you saying that that really doesn't do much for some people with chronic pain then, correct?
I think people that have chronic pain that never smoked weed before are unwilling to try it,
Okay.
you know, but I think the ones that are willing to try it, I definitely rather see them on medical marijuana than opioids. Yes.
Right.
And, you know, we've seen some studies that it's been very successful,
Yeah.
medical marijuana.
Wow. How do you guys talk to families? You know, the one person is addicted, you know, you have a family, maybe it's a father or even the mother. How do you get all these people on the same page to kind of, you know, make sure that this family doesn't break up? Obviously, with every family, that's not possible. But obviously, you guys try your best to try to, you know, keep that family unit together while the person that's dealing with that addiction can hopefully get past this slowly and steadily.
So what do we tell the family? So
Hmm.
David always says, it's so true, we're not usually the first call, we're usually the last call when somebody's calling us for an intervention on a loved one. And they've tried everything they can. Oftentimes they've tried to do an intervention themselves, which never works because you just need a professional. There's too many emotions, you're too attached, there's too much animosity and resentment. It just never works.
Too
So
reactionary to that person. Yes.
very adversary. Is that what you said, David?
Too reactionary.
Oh, yeah. So by the time they get to us, they know they need to do something because nothing they have tried thus far has worked. So we come in as professionals, and it's a totally staged intervention. It's not willy-nilly. There's a blueprint for the intervention as well. You have to get everybody on the same page. You can't have somebody going rogue. You can't have somebody, running the show. You know, the professional runs the show, and the professional interventionist makes it clear this is how it's going to go down. And there's impact letters written, and there's it goes very smoothly. And I would say 9 out of 10 times the person says yes. And oftentimes, if they say no, within a week, it becomes a yes. So we do have a very high success rate because it's done properly. And the first things we tell family is, your loved one isn't doing this to you because they don't like you. They don't even want to be doing it to themselves. So they certainly aren't doing it to do it to you. And you have to separate the person you love for the addiction that they have, because it's two separate things. You love this person, you don't like their behavior. I always say it's like having children, and you love your children, but they behave really naughty. And that's what an addiction is. You love your person, but they're behaving naughty, and it's those behaviors you don't like. It's not the person that you don't like anymore. So those are the kinds of things that we go in firsthand and let the family know, and work with them to get their loved one to make the right decision.
To go back into the book, so you did discuss a little bit earlier on about your marriage and how that went through with the opioids. How do you guys keep together such a good working relationship now? Because most people that are divorced, they just kind of spread their ways and they say, I don't give a shit about that person. I don't want to see him again. It's, what's done is done, and there's no forgiveness. But it seems like you guys work, like peanut butter and jelly together, and the forgiveness has, is there, I guess.
Yeah. The thing is that it was David Marion, the addict, that I didn't want to be a part of. David Marion, the recovering clean and sober guy, is a great guy. Unfortunately, that ship had sailed.
Say it. Yeah.
It's an ego boost here, but go ahead.
Yeah.
It's when you're riddled with addiction, you can't succinctly figure out how to pull your own head out of your ass and rinse off. But once you do rinse off, you get to see some of the dynamics, and you get to find the purpose in your life, and you learn how to become useful, right? And I think once people become useful, they become better human beings. And if you're truly involved in a program of recovery, and I'm an advocate for recovery, I don't care if it's a holistic therapeutic, I don't care if it's 12-step, I don't care if you're sitting on top of a mountain looking at a Buddha and praying, get on a path, right? All those paths are going to lead you probably to the same higher power anyway, or to a higher power. And you just have to do something to change your life. When you tap into what is recovery and what's not, it's more the simplicity of understanding patience, tolerance, compassion, sympathy, empathy, and being kind. And when you're using your selfish, self-centered, and egotistical, all you're thinking about is getting high. That's the most important thing in your life, because you have a mental obsession that's telling you to get high. You have a physical allergy that says, I don't have a shut-off switch, right? I can't just have one or two. So between the mind and the body, it's just this convoluted process that you can't concentrate and focus and be present on anything.
So with Addiction Rescue, lastly, what do you really hope people get out of the book?
We hope people get on a path to recovery, that it helps them change behaviors. We've got tools and in there to change every area of life, being body, mind, and spirit, because addiction wrecks all three areas of life. And we don't talk about one path, like David said, to get there. Whatever path is going to work for you, let's get on it. We're always available for a consultation. We'll give anybody our time to help them figure out what might be best, or talk to a family member if they're wondering if their loved one's in crisis and when is it time to intervene. Our website is theliferecoverycoach.com, and you can email us at info@theliferecoverycoach.com. You can book in an appointment right on the website. You can chat with us live on the website. So, we just want to be there for people and give them a resource. If we can't help them, we'll give them the resources they can. And we're happy to take on people as clients.
The book is a message of hope, right? That you don't have to keep feeling this way and living this way, that there is another way. But most people that are riddled with addiction don't see that. They don't see a way out. And what the book offers, different suggestions, action steps on how you can move out of that into a life you never imagined. And I'll leave you with this quote from the amazing Sigmund Freud, the founder of modern psychology, said that everything you and I do in life springs from two motives, the sex urge and the desire to be great.
That's 100% right. Any social medias you guys
Yeah.
have people can follow? Go ahead, David.
The Life Recovery Coach.
On Instagram.
On Instagram and Facebook, David Marion, Dana Golden. We're on LinkedIn also. And yeah, absolutely. You know, people also have questions that sometimes they're afraid to ask. And we often say, message us, you know, direct message us. My number's on there, Dana's number's on there. We're not, you know, we'll talk to anybody about this because everybody is a little bit sober curious, right? They're wanting
Right.
to know sometimes, how do we figure this out? What am I doing? What's happening different here? Why do I feel this way every time I drink or use? Where's this something? Where's the disconnect, right? How did I come out of the manufacturer's plan a little bit defective that I can't put the round peg in the square hole and make these relationships work? And just, you know, feel free. I mean, we've been there. So yes.
And I will say this too, I do have an assessment quiz if anybody of your listeners are interested to figure out what role you played in your family of origin and how it's impacting your life moving forward. And that quiz is at danagolden.com/quiz.
Addiction Rescue, definitely you can get at any bookstore. It is the liferecoverycoach.com. Definitely check out the website. Guys, thanks so much. I would definitely love to have you on again. It's been a pleasure and honor to have you on.
Thank you.
Anytime, Robbie. Glad to come back.